Hello and welcome back. Before I close this case, there was a lot of leads thrown towards Akram Farming. Let's clear this one up.
Hello? Is anyone there? Mr. Farming, are you at home?
Apparently so, Watson. Look.
Oh, what ghastly business. Everyone will assume the mummy has struck again.
Hardly a plausible assumption. This poor fellow has a knife in his back and not a scrap of sheeting about his neck.
How very observant, Holmes.
Ring up Scotland Yard. This case is simple enough for them to solve.
You've solved it already.
Elementary, my dear Watson. Obviously, it was the butler.
Butler? What butler?
Exactly my point. A man as wealthy as Akram Farmi would always have a manservant about him. After the foul deed, this one obviously beat a hasty retreat.
Okay, now it's time to close this case.
Hear ye, hear ye. The Queen's Court now stands in order. Mr. Holmes, I understand you've been looking into the mummy murders.
Yes, my lord.
Tell me then, who was Ebenezer Turnbull's murderer?
We already know this. It was Philip Travis.
And what makes you so certain? What was Travis' motive for killing Turnbull?
Now this one is slightly more difficult to work out, as there was no motives present during the video clips. And there's only one mention, really, in the newspapers. And that was in the February 6th, 1888 edition, where the Earl of Downey, who we later discovered is actually Turnbull, was publicly lambasting a journalist for the Times. And that journalist in question was Travis. And that's the only link that we actually have between Turnbull and Travis. As Travis definitely didn't think that the Catapult tomb should be left undisturbed, as he was going on an expedition there. And there's definitely no mutual interest in Clarissa Weatherby that we know of. And I'm not sure, there is no real evidence that Turnbull refused anything with Travis. So yes, the only link we have is an article in the Times.
And what of Andrew Weatherby? Who murdered him?
Again, Philip Travis.
So, you say Travis killed Turnbull and Weatherby?
Yes, I believe he did, my lord.
But what was his motive to kill Weatherby, Mr. Holmes?
While Travis does have some dubious mystical beliefs, he was actually angry, well, Travis was actually angry that Weatherby was chosen.
Ah, revenge. The oldest motive in the book. Now, Mr. Holmes, who killed James Windibank?
Again, Philip Travis.
This Travis seems to be quite a busy fellow. What made him kill James Windibank?
He was not happy that he wasn't chosen for the expedition, and he wasn't happy with that. That's the only real link that we have.
Well, you've done an admirable job in resolving this mystery. I'd say you're on a par with just about any other armchair detective out there. I would suggest, however, that you rethink this case again, thereby improving your sleuthing skills.
We must be slipping, my dear Holmes. But in any event, I'm breathing easier. At least we got our men.
This is possibly the most harshest case of them all, as Holmes' score is 35. We are expected to solve this case in 4 turns. That is very, very harsh. But we didn't do too badly. Let's check out Holmes' solution.
Well, Watson, I believe this case is solved. And for your information, it was not the mummy.
Come, Holmes. I never thought for a moment it was the mummy.
Of course not, Watson. However, the murderer and the mummy did have one thing in common.
What's that?
They both were the only ones present at the time of the murders, except, of course, the victims.
You state the obvious, Holmes.
Ah, but it is seeing the obvious that is important. First, I saw no reason to assume that we were dealing with more than one murderer. Secondly, the locations of the murders limited the number of suspects.
Limited them? The first murder was in Egypt, the second on ship in the middle of the sea, and the third in London. You call the entire populations of London and Egypt a limited number of suspects?
No, Watson. We had to find someone who was in Egypt for the first murder, on the ship for the second, and in London for the third.
Oh, but of course.
According to the newspapers, the Eastern Empress was in Bombay at the time of Ebenezer Turnbull's murder, so that eliminated the ship's crew as suspects. Thus, I needed the list of passengers who boarded the ship at Cairo. It was our visit to Jardine, Mason and Company that provided our first critical clue. From it, I learned that Philip Travis was a passenger. I then learned that Travis was the chap who reported on the first murder. He became one suspect, but I had no motive. Clarissa Weatherby, who was also at the scene of the murder in Cairo, was another possible suspect, since she appears to have had a bit of a dalliance with Mr. Uruburu there on the high seas. So I had found her motive for the murder of Weatherby, but not a motive for the murder of the others.
Then whom did you eliminate?
Mrs. Weatherby. Her hands were not strong enough even to open a jar of English toffee, let alone strangle a grown man.
And what of Travis's motive?
It seems that Travis was a student in the Egyptology department at London University and had studied under James Windibank. He wanted very badly to be chosen as a member of the expedition, but Windibank turned him down. Instead, Weatherby was chosen and Travis was furious. So there you have the motive for two of the murders.
And what of his motive for the murder of Turnbull?
Evidently, Travis had written a vicious article questioning Dr. Turnbull's credentials to lead the expedition. Turnbull's response was quite harsh, probably powerful enough to drive an odd duck like Travis to murder.
Very impressive, Holmes.
Elementary, my dear Watson.
And there we have it. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you for the next case, which is the case of the Tin Soldier. Take care. Bye-bye.